What's up guys, hope y'all are doing well, and before somebody says that the clips you just saw were taken from low level matches, I want to assure you that all of the clips that you just watched were taken from two separate games that I played, one against Grimjack and his duo partner, and the second against CJ and Ink. So these are top level players, these are high level matches. Yes, Willbender is still viable, and this custom build that I've created that is a slight variation off of the meta Willbender build is also very viable, and I've been having a lot of fun playing it. So I'm going to reveal all of the secrets to you guys today in how to play Willbender effectively at a high level, as well as give you guys a bit of a build guide, kind of to the meta build, but then also to my variation. Okay, so first things first, here is the current meta Willbender build. Most of y'all are familiar with this. It's worth mentioning, especially for those of you that are new. Willbender is a roaming DPS class, so your job as Willbender is actually to never take 1v1s. Your job is to plus the team and take, outnumbered fights in favor of your team. You do a lot of damage. I'll showcase that here just very quickly. Typically, this is kind of your damage combo here, and you'll see the medium target is immediately dead. So, your scrapper, your ranger, whatever, if they get knocked over and they don't have a stun break, they're pretty much dead. And that doesn't even begin to get into swords as well. There's a similar combo that you can use in swords. We will get to that soon. For now, just know that your role is dealing damage, and you will almost never, ever, ever take a 1v1. 1v1s are for fun, not for ranked, okay? Now, getting into the traits here, I don't want to get super in-depth on every single one. I'd rather encourage you guys to read it for yourselves and find the synergy, but I am going to touch on some of the main ones that you guys need to know. The first trait that I really just can't ignore is Renewed Justice here, which it says Virtue Skill 1 is renewed when you kill a foe. Every time an enemy dies, this skill comes off cooldown. That is really huge, especially if you're in a team fight, and specifically a team fight that you're winning, and you get that first kill and this comes off of cooldown. You can use it as extra damage pressure for the next target and the next target and the next target, so on and so forth. So that gives you a lot of extra damage just by virtue of the fact that you get a lot of kills as a Willbender. Okay, now two of the fundamental building blocks for the Willbender build here is Righteous Instincts. This is kind of the main one. So it says Resolution increases your chances to critically strike and grants might each interval. As a quick side note, you don't want to run this trait right here, getting Resolution off of a healing skill. You want to run right hand strength, and the reason why is because you have perma resolution without this. Just a quick side note there. But as you see here in the description of this one, your crit chance increases by 40%. So if you go to your stats here, you'll see you have Berserker and you have crit chance at 51. There's no reason for you to run like Marauder or even maybe like Assassin. Let's see, where's Assassin? Here it is. To gain the extra crit chance, because you're going to see that you're going to cap yourself out with Berserker. So this absolutely maximizes your damage. So you're going to have permanent resolution, putting you at 91.66. And then the other trait here, Radiant Power. Attacks against burning foes have an increased chance to critically hit. Your ferocity is increased. So if a foe is burning, you have 101% crit. You are already capped out, and that's without Fury. So keep that in mind as we continue to discuss the build. That's one of the main premises. That's what's keeping you dealing so much damage. And then on the note about resolution, I do actually want to highlight these real quick. So Virtue of Resolution here, gain resolution when you activate a virtue. So all three of your virtues here, when you activate them, you're going to gain resolution, okay? So, that previous one we were talking about, you use that, you get your resolution. Somebody dies, you use it again, you get more resolution. You can use your second one here, you can use your third one. And by the way, the reason we run Renewed Focus with the meta build, all three of those reset, and once again, you have more resolution going. So your virtues giving you resolution is a huge part of the perma resolution. And the other one is going to be Vanguard Tactics here. So activating Crashing Courage, which is this one, grants resistance. Shadow Stepping grants resolution and protection. So Shadow Stepping is going to be your Sword 2 right here. That's going to give you resolution. Your Sword 5 is going to give you resolution. Your Judge's Intervention is also going to give you resolution. Now, it's worth noting, and you'll see here, why don't I have resolution? You have to actually port to the enemy. All of those skills, and by the way, this one gives resolution based on that as well. So you get like a double resolution benefit there. Okay, now we touched on it briefly before, but I want to go over how to deal damage again. So basically there's more or less two combos that you have. One of them out of spear and one of them out of sword. Sword is a little more flexible, spear is a little more rigid, and I'll explain it to you guys. So the main damaging combos on Willbender, that starts with 5, okay, because 5 is your knockdown, and almost always you're going to pair 5 with Judge's Intervention because it's an instant 1200 range teleport and it's a stun break. So even if you're stunned, you can still initiate on the enemy with Judge's Intervention. So with Spear, it's going to be basically 5, 3, 2. Now I actually find that throwing in an F1 is huge, and I like to throw it in right after the initial knockdown. So I'm going to do it to the, let's do it to the large golem here. So we're going to do 5 into Judge's Intervention, which is our port skill. You'll hear me call it port a lot. And then followed by 3 and 2. So here we go. Okay, so that simple combo right there, actually, yeah, he's dead. Wow. Now, Whirling Light is kind of like F1 as well, and it's a low cooldown, so you can kind of use that one as well to supplement some extra damage there. You can use, it's worth noting too, the F1 and the Whirling Light you can use in Spear and in Sword. So anyways, that's your Spear combo. If you don't have your 5 up, it's on a 25-second cooldown. Honestly, sometimes I just lead into it with 3. So let's try that, and then we'll throw in the Whirling Light as well. So if I do like this, and then maybe like an F1, like that, and I can back away from... Alright, he doesn't quite die, but he almost did. So either way, that's a ton of damage. And then Sword is a little bit different. Your main damage in Sword is coming from 3, 4, and 5. And they're all kind of situational. So 4, you have to be super close. 3 is actually arranged and it'll block missiles. So you can see I did almost 3k damage to him there. And then 5 has a little bit of a port, so it rushes up next to him. These are all situational. There's not any particular order that you have to use them in. Oh, and then by the way, Sword 2 is a port. So you'll port up to them like that. And so you can use Sword 2 to cover distance. Sometimes I use it for damage because it does quite a bit of damage as well. Most of the time though, when you are initiating from swords, it's similar to Spear, where you want to use Sword 5 paired with Judge's Intervention here. That is an extremely strong start, and you can follow it up with the other damaging skills. So let's use it on the light one since this guy here is blowing up the heavy one. So if you use 5 paired with Judge's Intervention, you'll see you get right next to him. I can go 4, 3, and light target's dead. Now, just like with Spear, again, you can throw an F1, you can throw in Whirling Light. So, you know, I could have, right after chaining him, used F1 into Whirling Light. Usually you want to use Sword 4, though, I will say, after Sword 5, because the Immobilize is good to set this one up. You know, F1 has some movement in it, and Whirling Light you can move while you're casting it, and it has just a little bit more range on it than the Sword 4 does. So, but those are your main damaging combos, and then it's a matter of like switching in and out of them. So let's say we port up, we use 4, we use F1, we port over to the next guy, we hit him with this, we hit him with this, he's already dead, they're all dead, this guy's crushing them. But again, you guys get the idea, and hopefully you notice there that the F1 reset as well. So I mean, you can do this, now you go into Spear, you know, drop that one, F1's reset again, you can use 2, use your Whirling Light, switch back into Swords, oops, just came off cooldown, F1, he's already dead, that was a massive crit. Like, Willbender can just keep going and going when it comes to damage. And then a good way to supplement extra damage too, like a minute ago when I was stuck in Spear, a good thing to do is spam Spear 1, because Spear 1 does a little bit of healing. And that actually takes us now. Those are the damage combos. Practice those. Get them down. You can practice on golems and stuff. It works just fine. But practice those. Get them down. And then now let's talk about how you survive. So since we were already talking about Spear, your Spear heals you. So every time you attack, you're doing almost 200 healing to yourself. Your Spear 2 here is doing 805 healing. If it's illuminated, which the Spear itself, in order to be illuminated, you have to use Spear 5. And then you can also use Spear 4 as well. If you use them on yourself, they cleanse conditions on you, and then they also will illuminate your next attack. See that little buff right there that pops up. And so you'll see some skills will do slightly increased damage or slightly increased healing while they're illuminated. So yeah, pay attention to those. When we start with 5, that's the best way to do it, because you pour it up, and then, you know, number 2 is illuminated, so it's going to heal you. So, but yeah, 2 and 1 are your heals. 4, as I mentioned a second ago, is a condition cleanse, so keep that in mind. And then number 5 is also a symbol, which number 3 here is a combo finisher, so that'll cleanse a condition for you. So if you need to cleanse conditions and you have all of these skills off of cooldown, watch what happens when I use Spear 3 on this. See the cleansing bolts that pop up? And then I can use Spear 4, that'll cleanse conditions on me as well. Not all of those will hit you whenever you cast it, but some of them will. And so I think I want to say I've cleansed like 2 or 3 conditions before off of that one. So yeah, that's kind of your defensives on your spear. A little bit of healing and condition cleanse. There's not much defensive on your swords other than 3, which again, you know, if somebody starts shooting you with a heavy burst, especially if it's like a ranger, untamed, something like that, you can kind of mitigate some of their damage by doing that. So that's super helpful. And then virtuosos as well, if they're not running the unblockable trait. And then, I don't know if I mentioned it a second ago, but Whirling Light is also a cleanse. So if I do that, see the cleansing bolts from Whirling Light. I tested this, and I could only get Whirling Light and your Spear 3 Gleaming Disc here to cleanse 1 condition. So I'm pretty sure it just cleanses 1. If not, it's really, really finicky. But yeah, so keep that in mind. That's good for a condition cleanse, and so is your Spear 3. Now your main defensive, your healing skill here, we're running Signet of Resolve, which is going to have the passive effect and the active effect. So it's healing for 7,286 when you use it, and it's going to cleanse 2 conditions for you. But while it's off cooldown, like right now, you're going to cleanse 1 condition every 5 seconds. And you'll notice if you get hit with a condition, it'll immediately cleanse 1 right away, and then you'll wait 5 seconds for the next one. So when you use it, you'll even see the signet disappear from your bar there. Your other cleanse is going to come from your Contemplation of Purity. So this is a convert all the conditions you're suffering from into boons, and it's also a stun break. This is an extremely strong skill. You want to use Whirling Light and Gleaming Disc on a symbol as much as possible to cleanse and get cleanse out of your heal and stuff, because this is like this is basically your last ditch panic button, okay? This is like, I'm about to die, I gotta get the heck out of here. Actually, Renewed Focus is kind of that, but you don't want to pop Renewed Focus. That's your last defensive. This one you want to use as your last kind of cleanse and your last stun break when you have nothing else left. On the topic of stun breaks too, you have a few stun breaks. So you have this one. Typically this one is not off cooldown because you're using it offensively. So really all you're having is your stun break from Crashing Courage and stun break from Contemplation of Purity. And again, after you use Renewed Focus, this one will come off cooldown, so you can use it a second time. Quick side note, again, you want to read through all of your traits. Indomitable Courage here is why this F3 is a stun break. So, and on that note, Crashing Courage is actually your main defensive skill. So as I mouse over it here, you'll see we get a bunch of boons. We get stability, so we can't get knocked around. We get resistance, which allows us to like run full speed even if we're crippled. So any sort of like movement impairing conditions, those are not going to do anything to you. You've got Aegis, which blocks the next attack the enemy deals. And then you also have Protection. It's decreasing the damage, the raw strike damage that you're taking. And if you look at this skill right here, Deathless Courage, it says while Courage is active, incoming strike damage and condition damage is reduced. It does another 20% reduction to condition damage and strike damage. So in addition to your Protection for 5 seconds, the 33, and the Resolution, which is the 33, there's also another 20 on top of that you're resisting. So that is a massive, massive defensive skill. I can pop that, and I'm not going to take nearly as much damage from the enemy for a minute. And again, after I use my Renewed Focus, I can pop that one more time. So that is a huge way. Like a lot of times I actually consider casting that, and I'll actually cast that skill and port up with it, and then sometimes I'll enter a fight like that. If there's a lot of enemies, if it's maybe in the middle of a team fight, that's a good way to start off the fight, to make sure you don't get knocked over and to make sure you don't just get absolutely obliterated when you enter, you know, a lot of enemies and a lot of AoE damage and stuff like that. Okay, and then there's 2 other ways that I would say that you can survive. The main way, guys, that I survive in a ranked arena setting is with all of your ports. And we're getting close to explaining my build, which has even more ports. But you have one on your sword. That's the one that you want to use most often. If you guys want to practice this, I'd actually recommend coming over here to what I call the pit. I think it's technically called the arena. But you can basically come down in here and then practice just like porting from enemy to enemy, getting familiar with the cooldowns of these skills, and just bobbing and weaving throughout enemies. This is how I survive in ranked all the time. You know, I'll engage in a fight, I'm starting to die, and then I port, and maybe they're up higher. So I port up higher for whatever reason. But ports are huge for living, so always be ready to cycle through the next enemy and just port away from the situation that you're in. That'll get you out of a lot of trouble. And then the final piece of survival advice that I have for you guys is actually just choose good fights. It's really easy as a class that deals damage to want to just run in and just absolutely murder people and get a bunch of kills. The reality is that doesn't happen. You need to watch your timings. You need to play with your team. You don't want to overextend and get put in a difficult spot. So seriously, as a DPS player, that's huge. And on Willbender that can't 1v1, it's supposed to supplement the team. Choose your fights carefully and make sure your timing is good, and you can make a big impact that way, especially when all the enemies group up. You can go do a giant burst and get a bunch of kills that way. Okay, so now that we've covered the meta Willbender build, let's talk about my custom build. So right away, by the way, screenshot this if you'd like and copy this for your gameplay. But you'll notice right away the big difference here is we have a different amulet. So if you mouse over Berserker Amulet, you'll see that the only difference between these two is 900 Precision on the meta build versus 900 Vitality on my build. So if you'll look down, you'll see my health pool is 22,895. That's compared to the meta build, which is 16,445. So basically you're getting an extra 6,400, is it 6,450 health if I did that math right. And then on top of that, if you look at the power on the meta Willbender build, we're at 2,300 power. Whereas if you swap over, we have 2,495 power. We're getting that extra power one from Rune of the Vampirism, and then we're also running this trait here, Power for Power, which makes our Willbender Flames deal increased damage, and it gives us an extra 120 power. The reason we went away from that is because we don't need the healing from Conceited Curate. And the reason we don't need the healing is because of our relic here. So we're running Relic of Zakharos. While you are under the effects of Fury, convert a percentage of your outgoing critical strike damage into healing. So obviously you guys are wondering, like, how in the world am I going to deal anywhere close to the same amount of damage as Berserker when I have an 8.8% crit chance? Well, I'm glad you asked. The answer is we still have resolution. We have an extra port here with flash combo. So I can port up there and get resolution. I can port back and get a little more resolution. So that is helpful. And by the way, returning with repose also heals me for 2,595 damage. Again, part of why we don't need the Conceited Curate right there. But going back to the relic here, so we have to be under the effects of Fury to get healing, right? So where do we get Fury from? Well, notice that I switched over my elite skill to Feel My Wrath. So this is a 24-second cooldown elite skill, and it gives us 10 seconds of Fury. So now we have 14 seconds of Fury that we need to account for if we want to have permanent Fury. And by the way, while we have Fury, we have an extra 20% crit chance. So while Feel My Wrath is procced, or while we have Fury, and while we have Resolution, which is still permanent, we will have an extra 60%. And then on top of the Radiant Power, we'll actually have an extra 70%, which will put us at 78.8% crit against burning foes, 68.8 against regular foes. But where does the permanent Fury come from? Well, I'll show you guys. So if you look at Spear 3, you'll notice that while it's illuminated, it's going to give you Fury. So again, if I come up here and I pop that, you'll notice I just got Fury there for how many seconds? 6 seconds. So now we have 6 seconds from that. We have 10 seconds from that. So that's 16 seconds. We have to get 8 more seconds of Fury. How do we do that? Well, if I swap to Sword, you'll notice that I have Fury pulsing on me from this symbol here. And it's out, and that's back. So that's about 7.5 seconds of Fury, which means simply by sort of placing yourself carefully, you can run into a fight, pop this, pop this, whoops, and I didn't eliminate it, so we didn't quite get all of the fury. But you can see though, either way, I've got 8 seconds, 7, 6, 5, and we've got 12 seconds on that. So we're only having a little bit of downtime, and while you have the fury, you're converting the damage that you deal into healing. So now you also have Feel My Wrath giving you a massive burst, which you can do just like this. And again, on top of that, now you have an extra port, and you also have a heal, which does 2 condition cleanses as well. So you have more condition cleanse, you have more healing, a lot more healing between this and then attacking enemies with fury on you. You have potential for bursts, which is extremely helpful because you can burst through enemies just like that. I didn't even have to use F1 there, and I killed the heavy target extremely quickly. And by the way, this has a 600 radius. You're giving fury and quickness to your nearby allies. So overall, the build is a lot tankier because of the healing and because of the extra vitality. It has more condition cleanse, and in some ways you could argue it has more damage purely because you have higher power and you're constantly sitting, if you play it right, at about 80% crit. And again, you're not losing anything by running Valkyrie other than the precision. So your crits are hitting just as hard. They're actually hitting a little bit harder because your power is a little bit higher. I did want to mention as well, guys, that this build is absolutely viable even at the highest levels of ranked. I'm currently ranked 35 at 1514 minus 2 decay, and I've won 2/3 of my matches this season playing this build almost exclusively. So if you have any doubts, the build feels good. I have genuinely beat a lot of top players on a consistent basis, and I haven't felt like I'm not able to keep up. It still feels solid, it still feels strong. So just for those of you that might be a little bit skeptical about the level at which I'm playing this build at, let me know how you guys like it, or if you enjoy meta Willbender more. Obviously a lot of people are going to prefer meta. This one I find kind of fits my playstyle a little bit better, and it gives me a little bit of a cushion to survive, and it lets me burst a little bit harder when the opportune moment comes up. So I like it, I prefer it, I'm going to stick with it. I can't stand running Renewed Focus because it feels to me so disconnected from the build, and it's once every blue moon, whereas Feel My Wrath constantly comes up and you get a boost of health and a boost of damage at the same time. So I think it's way more consistent with Willbender playstyle, and I'd argue the same with Flash Combo. But yeah, so contrary to what people say, no, Willbender is not done. It's not out of the meta. As far as, you know, you guys playing this and taking this build into ranked and trying to compete that way, you can absolutely compete in ranked. I'm really enjoying this build. Not a huge fan of the current meta, but the build is a lot of fun, and it is able to deal damage. And as long as you know, pick your timings and choose your fights well and play with your team, especially using your elite skill, Feel My Wrath, with your teammate, you'll do just fine. So guys, let me know if y'all have any questions. Put them in the comments. Happy to help y'all out. I do have a Discord as well. Feel free to join the Discord and ask me questions there. I love helping new players out. So enjoy your ranked matches and good luck, and we'll see you guys on the next video.